Welcome to Keith and the Girl. I'm Keith Malley.
I'm Chemda.
We are on Doug Loves Movies, episode 1302. Keith Malley, Chemda, and Frank Conniff.
Amazing.
Were you nervous, Chemda, knowing nothing about movies? It's about movies.
Yeah, you can hear my nerves. And when I said, "Oh my God, I'm so nervous," like when I think I did pretty well. But every question he asked, I'm like, "Here's where I'm about to look stupid." Yeah, I don't know why I was invited to this show.
It's a game show, and the winner goes on the next show, on the next episode the following week. And Frank Conniff, that was his fourth time in a row. So we're going up against a heavy hitter. I know he did great. The team didn't win because I'm the best, but he did great for his team in Silent Trailers. The guy knows what's doing, you know.
Yeah, he's all about movies. Yeah.
So check it out. Give it a download. Again, 1302. Doug Loves Movies. It was a lot of fun, even if people did cheat. Today's guest, you love him. I love him. He's one of my best pals. He's Craig Klein. You can catch up with what he's about in My Name is Keith, episodes 24 to 26. It's called The Friend, Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. You know My Name is Keith, right? I get slam-basted on the show, and I yell questions at the guest. And again, next thing you know, Craig had a three-parter. Also, he was recently on Keith and the Girl, episode 3345, The Tao of Keith Malley. What was Keith like? He knew me before Keith and the Girl. Diamond Dogs, he's part of that. Of course, that's in your VIP package. We'll start cranking those out again. And I see he's trending #1 over the weekend, including today on Monday in an LA Times article. How exciting when you find out you're trending.
Unless
how exciting when you find out you're trending and your best buddy has a show and he first introduced you on his hey, we got drunk and I recorded my friend for these 3 episodes.
Yeah, I like how, you know, I've been listening to your episodes over the past couple of weeks, and it's like, you know, Stephen Colbert, Daily Show, yada, yada, yada. And mine is like, remember that time that we put ourselves in vulnerable situations and talk too much?
You might know Craig as the person who tried to have me be friends with one of his asshole friends. And I said, "You're not listening to me. I will not be his friend." And I kicked the garbage down the street, so he took me seriously. Ladies and gentlemen, Craig Klein.
Hi, Craig.
Hey, everybody.
So we'll get to that. First, let's get to a little news otherwise. The Miami Beach City Commission on Sunday voted to extend an 8 p.m. curfew and emergency powers for up to 3 more weeks to help control people getting out of control for spring break. People are packed like sardines. Now they go, okay, we didn't see this coming. There's now a curfew for 8 p.m., but they're already there. If these hotel workers didn't have enough troubles every year, now you have to be inside. People are going to die.
I love that an entire city can be surprised year after year at the spring break outcome. It's so funny. It's so interesting. Like I understand. I remember when I was like 17, 20, whatever, if you asked me to stop my life because of a pandemic, I would still stay at home and wear a mask, but I would be so upset. The ants in my pants would be going bananas. But it's funny because you look at what's around that. Those are the kids, of course, you know, hearing about the vaccines and things that might be getting better and stuff like that. How about the airlines that are doing $30 tickets to Miami? How about the hotels that know that they're jam-packed? Why are they jam-packed? So the city of Miami is allowing people in and is also allowing hotels at top capacity. I don't know what else is happening other than that. So now they implement a curfew. Now these kids are in the hotel.
Right. And so it's Miami Beach that is saying, hey, we didn't expect this to get so out of control that people would be idiots, but they are. So we're going to try to mitigate the problem as much as we can. And this is because the governor of the state of Florida said Florida is an oasis of freedom. And of course you can come here and party. All right.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, bring your money. But there's a curfew. Would you like our seamless?
1,000 new infections of COVID-19 each day over there in Miami. 50 to 100 people hospitalized every day. But all right. Tequila, what if tequila's the cure? I mean, we thought bleach was for a hot minute, right?
That's so nice that they continue to experiment with tequila in Miami Beach. Thank you, Miami.
They're both pissing and drinking out of the same punch bowl, but they don't know what's in the vaccine.
It was a good reason that they shot Scarface in Miami and not Toledo. It's the culture is reminiscent of this.
Right. Now you got to make your own parties nowadays. That's why we did silent trailers. We don't want to go nuts, but we still want to have a good time. And how fun was that? Other than again the cheating.
Oh, Keith, you were so close this time.
What? The very last one.
The very last one, after everybody got a chance to warm up their vocal cords, and it was like I think it was the only movie that you've never seen in your life.
Yeah, The Gods Must Be Crazy.
Of course, he's going to remember that movie for life.
Yeah. And I bet I'm going to watch it. I bet it's not even that fucking good.
That's what we should do for a KATG week is watch The Gods Must Be Crazy just to watch Keith cry and comment on it.
Oh, that's really good. That's really good. He won't like it. He's not going to like the movie at all.
No, he can't like it anymore.
Nope.
It made him lose his own game show. That movie is banned.
And that's Mel Brooks, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's either hit or miss. I think that movie would really just piss me off. I got a feeling.
It's going to annoy you very much.
Mara Wilson, how fantastic.
She
great. She probably did the best for her team, right?
I think she did, yeah. And she was so cool and collected. And she did Keith Malley moves. Like I started saying one description and she like just one thing on the scene and she got the right answer. Also, I did one of those, you know who's in this? It's the guy from this other movie. And she got the right movie. I didn't have to go into even the description of the movie. So really, Keith, you gotta wonder. You and I have been podcasting for 16 years and she got me in like 5 minutes.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. It was nice knowing you guys.
Yes, communication.
And then Mara working on something now. Pete Holmes, fantastic, of course. He hosts the show You Made It Weird. Very funny. When I say fantastic, I mean he didn't do too good, but hilarious. And then, of course, everybody's comics, Chris Gethard, Michael Ian Black. So they're all attacking each other. I'm hoping the infighting is going to work for me.
I think the infighting made them stronger. At some point, I don't remember which one. It was either Michael Ian Black or Chris Gethard revealed something on camera, on Pete Holmes' camera. He was like, what is the background? Pete looks behind him. He's like, oh, that's a bag of garbage. Mm-hmm. And you look at it, everyone like, I'm assuming you did too. I honed in on the bag. And then I couldn't help but being a little distracted for a second going, how did the bag get in the middle of the living room? Like he was taking his garbage out and then got tired, or he was taking his garbage out and then he started hearing Newsy introduce him to the show and he's like, fuck it.
Right. How did it even get there?
It was so great.
Chris Gethard has a couple podcasts. Beautiful Anonymous is the name of one. For an hour, he talks to a random person on the phone that calls him. And supposedly the gimmick is he can't hang up until they hang up.
Yeah. This show should be called No, You Hang Up.
Right. And he has a new one called New Jersey is the World. But the whole thing was a lot of fun. I dug it. Michael Ian Black's podcast is called Obscure. You can check that out as well. But I thank everybody for their time. They didn't have to be so ruthless, but I love them all.
But you talk so much shit up front that I think it's you that like sort of develops this fun, hostile environment. Oh, right. Craig and I were talking before the show. Craig, what was the impersonation that Keith did of them?
Oh, yeah. We know Keith. We know Keith. So we know his, we know his love language, so to speak, which is really just anger. And, and I like it, anger in degrees, and so there was a point where I think Chris had committed, right? Sorry, what was his name?
You're thinking
Chris Gethard?
No, not Chris Gethard.
Michael Ian Black. Pete
said I think he committed to not muting himself and doing comment. Yeah. And I could tell as they were getting more points that Keith was starting to like, he was sinking in, you know what I mean? You know, when his shoulders go up and he's like, all right, now I'm in it, and I think that there was a break in whatever joke Pete was doing. And Keith said, hey, Pete, you mind if I do an impression of you? And Pete said, oh, yeah, sure. And he goes, I'm a piece of shit. And so you and I know Keith, and I'm like, oh, that's classic Keith impersonation. That's when Keith does impersonations. That's how he does them.
And I don't understand why he didn't do the voice, because usually he adds a voice to the impersonation.
Right. And there was like, now I'm on the edge a little bit because he didn't do the voice. It was just straight up, I'm going to do okay. I'm a piece of shit. And everybody in there that doesn't know Keith, I'm watching their faces and they're like, what? How did it just get so fucking dark in here? Is there going to be a Zoom fight?
Usually the voice is this. I'm a piece of shit. Like, no matter what octave you speak at, no matter like what your articulation is, usually he goes, hi. Oh, and usually he says the names like, hi, I'm Pete. I'm a piece of shit.
You know, it's great that I just realized, Chemda, similarly to the uncanny truths that you acknowledge in the Malley siblings, when they can pick up on each other's sentences and do the impression of Father Malley to a T.
Right.
We're in this family that you and I could probably do. Like if Keith came home and said, I went to the Burger King to get something and I had something bad happen, you and I could probably act out whatever it was that happened.
Yes. Yeah. Like I should do a show without Keith as Keith.
Right. There wasn't cheese on your burger and 2 people are dead. I bet it goes something like this. Holy shit, that's right.
Yeah.
I
know Pete was busting my balls for something. I remember saying, you know what? That would bother me, Pete, if I didn't know you were suicidal.
That was a good one. That was a good one.
But I don't even think we're allowed to say suicidal anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like,
maybe you're right.
Yeah, you're not allowed to call people crazy. He had like 3 depression/suicidal jokes where everyone's like, I don't know that that's PC anymore, especially in a group of people who have admitted, I think all of them, all of them, including me, were like, yeah, of course we have suicidal thoughts and tendencies, and we're not crazy, we're just normal. And Keith's like, I'm a piece of shit. I'm gonna kill myself. I should. You know what? I should.
And when did I meet Pete? 10 years ago? Michael Ian Black never.
Right. Hi.
So therein lies the difference. Pete's laughing. Pete gets it.
Right.
But I particularly, I saw Chris's face and he gets sunk in. And at first it was confusion. And then he like settled back. And I know this face because I'm a coward and I've seen a lot of these situations go down. Right. And so I can see Chris's face and he's turning into like, I really need to say something. Like, I'm gonna stop this aggression.
Right.
And then you realize the person badgering other people is not wearing sleeves and doesn't know how to do impressions and is just spiraling in his own shame.
Well, to be honest, and I think this is to Chris's credit, that his motivation changed when there was an angle and he had a good line, you know what I mean? And he made the joke, he got a laugh and like a good comic, like he's bad. He doesn't even remember what he was angry about. I got him on my side, baby.
Hey, let me ask you this, by the way, speaking of celebrities, you remember, of course, Andy Dick, when you and I hung out before Keith and the girl, I know one time he was at a bar, you guys met, and he asked to come back to your place to look at your paintings, right? Am I saying this right?
Yeah.
And then he ends up sitting on the bed looking through the internet for people talking about him. Was he hitting on you?
Well, it's important to mention that he wasn't looking on the internet. He checked his email.
Okay.
From my computer, and there was and the funny beat on that is that it was just all hate mail. And I could tell by the subject line, it was just a whole thing of like, fuck you.
This is so weird when you guys bring up Andy Dick as a reference to Craig. Did you watch the show Love? It's a Netflix original. It's like 2 or 3 seasons, and it's this woman who ends up, this is really weird, meeting Andy Dick this is just a sideline of part of the story, but she meets him in a bar and ends up hanging out with him, and it has such a vibe of every time you guys mention meeting Andy Dick and hanging out, I'm like, oh my God, this is how he seems and is depicted on this show Love. Like, he's hanging out with you, he'll hang out for hours, he doesn't want you to go home, he might try to hit on you, you'll say no, he'll try again later, and then just like need to hang, and I'll come to your house, you come to my house, like that kind of thing. And he was only in the show like twice, very briefly, and every time you bring up Andy Dick, I'm like, did they write Andy Dick in this show and then he played himself and is just aware of that?
This was his style. He was famous for it. Like when I met him, he gave me his personal number. This was before cell phones, really. So he gave me his personal number on a business card. And
whose business card?
His business card.
Oh, but he gave the personal number. Okay, sorry.
And then he had his office number, his fax number, and then he wrote down his like the home number and his address, and was like, if you're ever in LA, I have all of these vintage Streamline, those beautiful silver trailers,
Okay.
From like the 50s. He had several of those that he reconditions and had in his driveway and his place in LA, and he has artists that he meets and hangs out with in different cities stay in those places for as long as they want while they're in LA. It's like residency via Andy Dick. So I will always have, I didn't take him up on that, but why
what was weird about that you met him for the first time and he's giving you his personal, not only his business card, his personal information, including his address, and asking you to stay over after 5 minutes of meeting you?
And now he's going to curate all your work in a trailer in LA, because why not?
I mean, I understand that you are an incredible artist and a producer, but he must have picked up on that vibe so clearly in the first. Like, what is your elevator pitch? Because it is on point.
But I mean, that would have been that wouldn't have been the most strange encounter of financial codependency that I put myself in that time. I had been doing all kinds of stuff like that. Like my regular.
You didn't get in touch with Andy.
I didn't get in touch with Andy because I never went to LA. I was never wanting to go to LA.
All right.
I did call him once and he answered. I think for all intents and purposes, he was just a genuine guy that wanted to help out. Strange.
And he's still depicted as that on the show Love.
I believe it.
So it is very friendly, and I just want to make friends. Why can't things just be normal? Why can't we just connect off the bat and like all that kind of stuff? But it has an essence of, a little mania.
And also I think that he's also just as well known for going too far, licking people's faces and like putting his hand up their skirt in a very flamboyant gay guy way. But he's not really gay, he's bisexual, so it makes it a little bit weirder. And also, like, why do gay guys get a pass for like grabbing people's assholes as well?
Just to note, that's not a little weird, it's all the way weird.
Yeah, right. Right. And so he is rightfully criticized, I think, for that. And I think that's, and I think I know what Keith is mentioning as far as, are you talking about his tweet that he put recently?
I saw a tweet recently. I also happen to see he's engaged now. And anytime I see somebody mention it, and by somebody, I mean a news article, it always adds, apparently it's true. Like, who knows with him? They're like, and we choose to believe him. So he's dating somebody named Elisa Jordana, and I recognize the name because I listened to Howard Stern, and she was dating Benji Bronk for a minute.
No way, that girl?
And it felt like she was using him for attention because, they're dating and he's schlubby. She's hot as hell. And because he's balding, she'd make him wear hats. And it all seemed weird, right? And I'm just going by listening to the show, but I was an avid listener.
And she was a total zero talent. She was
Yes.
totally cringy. Yeah.
And so now the two of them are engaged, Elisa and Andy Dick. And I saw a tweet from Andy Dick. Can I have some cash in my Venmo? I'm very hungry right now. Now, is this avant-garde art? Or is Elisa going, that's funny. That should give us more Venmo for my ring.
It's
what is it?
It's okay. So
you are now the Andy Dick spokesperson. Please read his mind as you read his tweet.
If Keith, if Keith made me laugh and I was like, oh, I'm having a heart attack, you're making me laugh so hard, you know what I mean? Like, it's not a good joke, but it's understood that it's a joke. If an elderly man that has had bypass surgery and somebody makes him laugh and the joke he chooses is, oh, I'm having a heart attack. Right. It's like, no, you can't make that joke because I can't tell whether you really need some Venmo. And if you look at I read the comments on that tweet and some of them were like, DM me, baby.
I see one.
Are you okay?
I see right away. Yeah, I don't even see like baby. I see serious DM me. Andy Dick writes back, what's your number? And it's funny when it's next to a blue check mark. What's your number?
I know, it's so funny.
And then they start talking about they can work something out in Cash App. It is very strange. And you're right. There's something weird because it could be true. I would believe it, I'd
like to think that it wasn't. And sure. And it is a joke, and it makes it an even funnier joke. And this is why this is personally why I love Andy Dick, because he's always been shit on. Even when he was like first coming out and he wasn't a controversial figure like Ben Stiller show and stuff like that, okay. He was always the fucking gay nerd weakling shit on. He was the butt of every joke. He was pushed around. And I think that I like that he lets it happen to him. I like that he rolls over on it and he rides that fucking wave. Good for Andy Dick. Good for Andy Dick.
What a nice spin on Andy's bullshit.
That's the way I feel about it.
Wow. Is Andy Dick the one that was on, what's the show that Joe Rogan was on that I love?
Mm-hmm.
Police Blotter?
News Radio.
News Radio. Yeah, what an incredible part. That he must have been like 20 years old when he got that. I don't know where he's being shit on other than because he has this personality that pushes people and go, what did I do? I don't know that it's coming out of nowhere and he's such a bully victim. You know what I mean? I think that
yeah,
he
I see you.
First a lot of times.
I totally agree with you, but I mean, I remember him like for Stern, for instance, very early on in his career and coming on Stern and stuff like that. And where Stern might ask somebody, or you remember early Stern where it was obviously like, you're gay, you're, a weakling.
Just admit it? Yeah.
Yeah. All of this stuff. And yeah, he wasn't even out yet. You know what I mean? It was very uncomfortable. It was like that almost everywhere. And I remember feeling like tension when it was like early 90s, Andy Dick,
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And all that bullying made him bite people's cheeks. You never know what you're creating with your mockery.
Yeah. I mean, but I think maybe. I think Father Malley did say that best.
He said it all best. Let me mention Stereo. We're going to be on it. Stereo.com. It's an app. You know that. Stereo.com/Keith Malley is where you go. Or stereo.com/Chemda. And then, just make sure you follow me and Chemda on there. It's a show that we do on a free app. And you can interact with us as we do it. We're going to do it Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern time, and we want you to be part of it. So
now we're talking here with Craig, and Craig, you've heard some of our stereo shows, right?
I'm loving it.
Is it not reminiscent of old school Keith Malley?
Totally.
Right? There's something about it where he's like, this is Keith and the girl, right? And this is the stereo thing is the Keith and the girl after show, just sort of like, I'm going to let loose here. He's already smoking his weed. You know what I mean? He's just like a little loosey goosey with his words and just like,
right.
Okay.
If you want the BTS Keith Malley, if you want the real Keith Malley, you might have thought that it was all beers, babes, news, and torn paper. It isn't. It's video games and anger. And a little bit of like fucking and probably some delivery, you know, and but decadent delivery.
Yeah,
delivery.
It's really fun, and we're only putting it on stereo, and we're not putting it in this feed that you're listening to it now. And how do you support the show while listening for free? You use our link to get the app by going to stereo.com/Keith Malley or stereo.com/Chemda, depending on if you want to type a little bit more or know how to spell or whatever it is. You can pick either of those. Again, it's stereo, stereo.com/Keith Malley or /Chemda.
All right, let's talk about this article. I saw it trending all weekend, trending #1, and I don't think it's based on my search history. Did you wake up to it trending, or did you wake up to they said this article's coming out that you're mentioned in?
I knew it was coming out the night before, and I knew that it was coming. You know, I think that it's a little overdue, and I don't know if they, you know, it's overdue, which is kind of my first criticism of the article. But
some of the stuff in the article, I read it, and last year I remember you being in chat, KeithandtheGirl.com/chat, and I remember that you told this story, and this is the story. It's in this article. It was at some of the height of the latest BLM movement, and they talk about the Zoom chat that you talked about. They talked about the club, the sexual harassment, all this stuff. So it was in there.
It was in the LA Times. That's the other Times, you know.
Yeah.
That's like the 17th wonder of the world, right?
Yeah.
I'm a piece of shit.
The
LA Times.
Nice to meet you. I'm the Times. The article is called, and you know article titles now. It's the whole story, right? It's not a clever title. LA Goth Club misconduct claims include actor Thomas Middleditch. Goth Club misconduct claims include actor Thomas Middleditch. Thomas Middleditch is the main guy from Silicon Valley, which I had to stop watching because his character became such an asshole out of nowhere. For anybody that followed Silicon Valley, let me know if you agreed. But he's this nerdy guy trying to get by. It was almost like Entourage in that, you know, they're losing everything, now they're millionaires. Now they're losing everything, now they're millionaires. And it was funny and fun. And then all of a sudden, the main character just started being an asshole. I'm like, is this New Raiders or what? But anyway,
they do that a lot on shows. It drives me nuts because it doesn't show continuity to me, because I've invested in these characters, and you need to give me a reason why they would change. They can change, they can evolve, they can lose their minds, whatever. But like,
right.
I don't know. Or when they exaggerate the one little characteristic that might have gotten a laugh, like how Friends did at the end, where Monica, she can't even like take a little spill, and that's her whole storyline, is that she's messy. And yes, I'm still back in 1990. always. Look at my references. My God.
Thomas did multiple Verizon commercials that were popular on Netflix. There was an improv show called Middleditch and Schwartz, and on CBS there's a new show called Be Positive. And I guess his blood type is B positive, and you know, some medical thing he has to go through. But of course,
I thought it was about maybe having AIDS and being positive about it.
I think you're close. It's something.
Sure.
It's something like this.
It probably hits everything. It's so clever.
So I'm going to read a little bit of the LA Times article. Hannah Harding posted part of the thick wooden gate and walked into the barely lit labyrinth of the Hollywood club Cloak Dagger. Now, not to jump ahead, you worked at Cloak Dagger. True or false, Craig Klein?
Yeah.
Okay. An evening at the Goth Club where a cast of experimental artists performed airy, sexually charged ceremonies each week in the back rooms of the Pig and Whistle Bar was a coveted invitation. An uninhibited, LGBTQ-friendly, members-only club where underground DJs, actors, rockers, and adventurous partygoers could revel in safety and society. Now, if this doesn't sound like Skull and Bones, what are these parties? All I can picture is that there's sex and drugs. Is it like they're making it like it's Eyes Wide Shut?
Yeah, right. So, yeah, I mean but that's the point. It's theater. It's all theater. And so I think, first of all, I want to say that Middleditch and anybody else who abuses the freedoms of being in a subversive space, and a space that is meant to be for yourself to become an exaggerated type of person, they're exploitive. They're awful people, and they ruin it for a lot of other people. And I have no excuses for him. I know intimately that whereas the article, I know you didn't ask this, but where the article, there was a lot of things that were wrong with the way that Cloak and Dagger was operating. And some of those are mentioned in the article, but that situation was handled, as far as I understand, to the best of their ability, as far as the management and the ownership of the club went at that time.
Well, here's what happened. Well, let me say what happened.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you should. Sure. Go ahead.
The scene felt a little spooky, but that was part of the appeal for the then 21-year-old. As the party ramped up in the main black room, actor Thomas Middleditch, best known for blah, 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 approached Harding on the dance floor, she said. He'd met Harding at the club before. Staff had brought concerns about his behavior to the co-founders, Adam Bravin and Michael Patterson. Now, these are happening people too, right? Michael Patterson's a Grammy-nominated producer. He did music for The Social Network. Adam Bravin was in a band called She Wants Revenge. Interesting title.
Or like She Got Revenge, am I right?
Harding said Middleditch made lewd sexual overtures toward her and her girlfriend. She turned him down, but he kept pursuing her, groping her in front of her friends and several employees, including the club's operations manager, Kate Morgan. Morgan said she asked her bosses to kick Middleditch out and ban him, but they didn't seem to take it seriously. I felt like they dismissed it, she said. I told Adam that he needed to listen, that this was not okay. Harding has Instagram direct messages from Middleditch, seen by the Times, saying, quote, Hannah, I had no idea my actions were that weird to you. I know you probably want to just put me on blast as a monster. I don't expect you to want to be my friend or anything. I am so ashamed I made you feel uncomfortable. I have many trailers I can show your art in LA if you're curious. No, I'm just kidding. A representative for Middleditch declined a request for comment. So what do we think right there so far?
So, I don't know how Hannah was directly communicated to about that. But what I know is that this dude came to the club one night with his girl, presumably his girl at the time. He was sloppy drunk. And my first thought, it's a small room. It's a private club. It's a secret society, right? So when you're sloppy and you're that notable of a face, what are you doing? You know what I mean? I was just like, you're acting weird. And I think that he was dancing pretty aggressively, like a dork. And he left. The next week he was back, but then he was kicked out after this incident. His membership was stopped. The bouncers were given his picture, his name, and told to never let him back in the club that night. Right. So, I can only speak to that aspect of it. And as somebody who is very, my career is this type of stuff, and my career is the type of theatrical and immersive type of stuff like this. There is really what more could be done in that situation besides making the person leave and never allowing the person back in.
I see this person on Twitter, Catherine Algeri, says the same Thomas Middleditch who called the Me Too movement, quote, scary when asked to comment on TJ Miller's sexual assault claims. That was accused rape. Somebody else brought up the point, Ariel Elias, there's more sexual abusers in the cast of Silicon Valley than women.
He's a piece of he's obviously a piece of shit. He's
Now, by the way,
obviously a piece of shit.
that was not in the article.
Right, that's just side Twitters,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
This person writes on Twitter, Thomas Middleditch told his wife a few days after their wedding he wanted an open relationship. I remember that being news. Then talked about it in an interview like that made them a modern couple. Anyway, now they're getting divorced and Thomas is accused of assaulting women in goth clubs. Well, time goes by, you know. Let's see. Harding said Middleditch made lewd sexual overture. I read that. 10 women, including 4 former employees, told the Times that Bravin and Patterson, the people in charge, prominent blah, blah, blah. They alleged that the owners took cover under the club's secrecy and boundary-pushing aesthetic until a Zoom call in June when members unloaded on Bravin and Patterson about how they've been treated. I'm going to skip ahead. Harding said that after she complained, she saw Middleditch grope another woman, by the way, in the club. She said Bravin did reach out a week later, only to tell her she must have been mistaken about the incident. So it's multiple women. Adam called me to make sure and get a second opinion on him because they didn't trust my story in the first place. They cared more about famous people at the club than women's safety. What this Zoom call that's mentioned? You were part of that?
Yeah. Well, I wasn't involved in it. Had I been asked to be involved in it, I would have told them that it was a bad idea. But
how do you mean? Why?
Why was the Zoom call a bad idea?
Yeah, it's with all the coworkers and stuff. Why is that?
Yeah, because it was the members. In my opinion, you know, it was a volatile situation. There were things that didn't happen leading up to it as far as communicating properly with some of the membership. It's a shame, you know, when there's a lot of people and there's a very sensitive subject like race relations and how a private company is going to place itself inside of that political discussion, right? It was a decision. And
wait, can we just describe the Zoom call was brought together because the members thought that the social media should reflect the BLM movement by putting on something like what everyone was doing, which was just an all black something or something about Black Lives Matter. And the heads of the club decided that they're staying out of it. And the members were saying that this is not a time to stay out of something. And we want this representing the club. Wasn't that what the initial Zoom call was put together for, to find out how they're going to involve themselves or not involve themselves in this movement? Because they don't want to, their whole thing was, we don't want to get political. That's not what we do. And the members were saying, this is not politics anymore. This is the social freedom, which is what we're supposed to stand for in this particular club.
Yes.
Is that why it was called?
Yes. And this is the only reason why I really would speak on this publicly at this point, because I believe, again, my motivation is to move nightlife and these types of communities forward. And this was a misstep of the greatest accord, because it takes I mean, you're in therapy, you do OMAT, you understand when you have one volatile person, right? It's you really got to ready yourself to have that discussion with them and be open to listen and like take it in and hear them and then respond appropriately. Now that now consider it 70 people, 80 people, 100 people on a Zoom call, and you're talking about something that's very, very, very sensitive. Nobody is very well equipped to do that under those situations.
Honestly, it seemed silly. And I don't want to say
it's so silly.
No, I think it's very sensitive. So you don't want to say like, don't bother with the BLM, whatever, but like they're either going to post something or not. And yeah, like you said, the therapy and the OMAT or whatever reminds me that you can't bully someone into doing what? Into having your cause, into approaching your cause like how you want it. I don't understand what the Zoom call was about. I think what it was is there was an underlining effect already happening. They were mad already. Now they feel not listened to on this other subject. And it just feels like, oh, this is the same shit we're never heard. And now we can back in on this. And I don't know if it was conscious, but we can back in like, hey, let's talk about the BLM movement, because we can't talk about the sexual harassment. We tried doing that. If we call you into a Zoom meeting with 70, 80 people on a sexual harassment, why would you even want to come in? So we're angry. We're not necessarily, fully expressive of that until we get in on this. And then, like you said, it's one person speaking out, and then not mob mentality, but it's a group that is now going, oh yeah, me too. Because that is how the Me Too movement went. So them trying to put together a thing that people can explain to the leaders of this group why you would want to be involved on social media about Black Lives Matter sounds so dopey. And it sounds so childish. And that everyone's getting together as if they're changing the world with probably all white people in the room. It becomes a joke. And then the reason why it turns serious is because there is this shit from underneath that has been serious that could finally come to the surface now that we have your attention and there's a number of us in the same room.
Yes. Yeah, I think that you're right. And that's why I would have, again, it's a volatile situation. You have no idea where this is going to go. And once you raise those emotions and get people talking about these things, the levee breaks.
It becomes another thing.
Right.
And another thing.
Right. Looking at this article, Elizabeth, 29 years old, she's like, hey, since we're all here, why don't we talk about that? And it just says this in our article, a prominent Cloak member sexually assaulted me in my apartment in October of 2018. Okay, so we got all the BLM. Let's focus. This was a BLM meeting. Well, actually, she brings up a good point. This was just a BLM meeting. Stop.
And that's the thing. You guys don't have meetings on a regular basis with all of your members. So there's it's not like it's Gilmore Girls every Thursday or whatever. They went in, they have the gavel. They know which things comes first and who's in charge, and you're covering more than one thing. This is, why aren't we posting Black Lives Matter on our Instagram? This is the first time you had a meeting.
And it's a little different than that, because you have to remember that this is like, it's a club, right? People are paying memberships. It's a secret society in the heart of Hollywood. You know what I mean? It's very mysterious. There are like rituals and black magic and on all of these things. There are like gateways into becoming a member that you like trust things. And
like what? What's one where you fall back and the other person catches you? What's one trust thing?
They mentioned tattooing 3 dots under the eye as part of it.
A lot of these things are very inflated. You know what I mean? Of course, that's fucking crazy.
Well, they were
that's fucking crazy.
There were like 2 or 3 different examples of the rituals. None of them sounded ritualistic. They just sounded like, things that you can do to associate. So there was the tattoo, the 3-dot tattoo. There's also a tattoo of the logo of a
dagger, cloak and dagger.
Yeah. The dagger.
So in a group like there was.
That's fine. It just doesn't seem to be a ritual. It just seems to be a thing to associate yourself with it.
Yeah, I mean, but there were a lot of rituals. Okay, for instance, we might the rituals were based around becoming dependent on each other in the space and open to each other in the space. And so it would be like we would pass around crystals, and you would like put your energy into a crystal and then give it to the person that was next to you. And that person needs to hold on to that and bring it with them everywhere they are, because you might be asked at some point to have it on you. And if you don't, that would be a strike against, the membership. Right. So it's, and then, you have all of these members quietly holding crystals in their pocket for months and months. And then all of a sudden it's recalled and you give it off to another member. So it's like, and these are just for instances.
I picture all these weirdos fucking as is, by the way. So you don't got to force it, Thomas.
Yeah, therein lies, I think, a really important actually point. Yeah, there's we're creating the right mood, and nothing needs to be forced. You're fighting anything if you're being a powerful idiot, and you're trying to exploit a good thing. You're trying to exploit good fun, and of course, I love how it's great. It's great that that's the way that people think of these places. It's by design. Sex, Satan, black, right? That's what we want you to all think. But if you were actually there with the discerning eye and you were on the wallflower for a little bit, or you worked there, if you bust tables, you realize it's just a particular style that we have. And we do these things to make it a little bit more special. It justifies distributing liquor at a higher cost. I mean, that's basically the bottom line, right?
I mean, there's some things in this article. Again, I'm reading from the other times.
Please.
And it says there were people had safe words on file. What the fuck does that mean? Do they have to I'm saying my safe word banana? It's like, hold on, got to check the drawers. Was yours banana?
I thought that was weird. On file also. Why not? The room has a safe word. Or somebody told me, how about the safe word is no? But that's okay.
I mean,
I totally get it. The safe word is no until you have a safe word. But to me, a safe word, if I'm in the middle of having sex and I go toaster oven, if we didn't establish a toaster oven is a safe word, right, you might think then call the emergency. I'm having some sort of weird episode. At least stop because I said toaster oven. Right. Because if toaster oven turns you on, that's like another thing that we're gonna have to look into. But it's
toaster oven.
Yeah. Like a light socket. What? Is that a move? Ask me a question.
There aren't safe. See, and again, who are these other people that you have on your the shower glory hole fucking asshole?
Oh,
is that
Billy.
Yeah, Billy Persida. I'm coming for you, Billy.
This asshole's already out there before I answered, for the record.
Billy. He's like. I understand kind of how he talks about these things, and that's how it gets inflated into I guess what I'm saying is that these types of cultures, it's actually not that big. There's no sex happening there, and I don't know if there were.
Don't say there's no sex happening there. There's sex happening in every dark. If there's a
there
dark
isn't.
corner in a club,
there isn't.
There's no
how many
sex
times?
happening.
How many times? I mean, maybe there is, but my point is, how many times have you actually seen anybody having sex in a club in America?
Come on.
How many times? A lot.
My brother lost his virginity in one.
In a club?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I'm just saying it's not as common. It's about as common any place, I guess, is what I'm saying. Like any place with loud music where people are dancing.
That's what I'm saying. Don't say there's no sex in the place.
Okay.
Just in lingerie.
Yeah, and what I mean is that I don't think that it's happening.
Safe words.
I don't think that it's happening any less or more than it's happening at the general club. It's just a costume party. It's a costume party, and I think that these things are a very important part of culture. It's why go to this restaurant as opposed to this restaurant that has, and they both serve Italian food. Well, I like the atmosphere at this one better. It makes me feel like I'm on they've got like trolley trains and you sit inside of a train. Oh, that's cool. I like that. I like that theme. And so I'm going to eat my ravioli over there.
I get it. But if you go to TGI Fridays for their theme and then you go to a goth lingerie, whatever, that theme. Yes, those are just different atmospheres. You could be serving the same food, but it is encouraging of that hedonistic behavior. I'm not
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
So you're going to have more sex maybe in that space as opposed to the TGI Fridays bathroom, which, by the way, I'm sure there's also sex in. So
okay, this is totally fair. Okay, so I agree with that completely. So then, if that's the atmosphere that you're creating, you want it to be a very special type of atmosphere. That it maybe people are feeling more vulnerable or more on the fringe of their comfort zone, right? Which is what we're all searching for, I think, when in recreation a lot of the time. Then what you're doing is you've got to make it more safe, right? And this safe space is a word that's used in that article a lot, which I understand, and I agree with that term. But it's like a branding mechanism, and having any place called a safe space is really misleading, because how can you make a safe space? You can just do the best that you can. So it was acknowledged that we wanted this space to be a better space, a more safe space.
Well, if
so
you
that
if you
people
think
can,
about it, and I think this is to your point or completely anti your point, every space that's public is aiming to have a safe space, or they're gonna like TGI Fridays again. That's not a safe space, but there are different rules, because this is a safe space because you're not going to reach over because you know better when you take my mozzarella stick. If I'm going to the bathroom with you, I might have just picked you up but like
and if
it's
it's a private group, see,
but if
therein lies the thing.
but if sexuality is encouraged, meaning
Yeah.
like we want to be, like you said, the subversive, the over the top, that's what the article started with. That's what the 21-year-old was attracted to. That's what you're saying. You're putting performance on.
Yeah.
You are putting sex into a club, which means you have to be safer about other things, which means you might have condoms, you might even have finger condoms, you might have lube,
Or you have a closed membership where you literally can't get in unless you're a guest, or unless you're a member, or unless you're a guest of a member that has been cleared.
But there's still
that's
still
where
strangers. You can't.
Well, what I'm saying is that's well, it's therein lies the whole concept behind making a safer space.
Then what is a safe space? To me, a safe space is when something happens, you address it and you nip it in the bud. That makes it safe. Or you give condoms, that makes it safe. Or like you have an environment where people can be naked and not be afraid that that is an invitation for something they're not actually saying they want.
But I think also having a closed community, right?
So I don't know, because every closed community has the uncle. Do you know what I mean? And every closed community has the priest. Every closed community has the I don't know, the other pedophile down the block. Like your cul-de-sac might have the serial killer. It's all closed communities.
Well, that's what seems to be happening with this place. This woman, Allison Waxman, 28, she's saying she's at the club. Two men grabbed her by the hair, tried to drag her away, and so she reports it, and they dismiss her. And if they don't dismiss you, it sounds like they banned you for a certain amount of time. So they're having this Zoom meeting, the owners, Bravin Patterson, and she brings up, the BLM meeting. Then she brings up, hey, while you're here, you need to stop. Let's see, who's she saying this to? She's saying it to Bravin. You need to stop hitting on every woman who comes in. We don't like it. We're half your age. It's inappropriate. She worked there, I suppose. I was totally surprised and offended, said Craig Klein, a theater and nightlife executive who was on the call. I reached out. This is a quote. I reached out to everybody I worked with in nightlife immediately to tell them to avoid Cloak. I was livid. End quote. Now,
when they say I was livid, what is that in reaction of? Because I couldn't tell by the article.
I had hired performers. I had been bringing people into the circle, and we were performing,
aerial
not sex shows, but hypersexualized material, not necessarily nudity or sex, but it was the idea was to turn people on. And so once this came to light that there were any types of issues like that, the last thing I would ever want to do is bring somebody into this like very trusting relationship that we have with each other, where we're making performance art. And then they're in proximity to somebody who is and I think that it is very important to point out that this is totally awful. These accusations, that they made towards Adam, and I wanted to speak to my performer or the performers that were working for me and make sure that they weren't put in any vulnerable situations with him, and he didn't prey on them in those situations.
So that's what that quote was. Is that I I have to say, it just wasn't clear to me when I got to your quote.
Yeah.
I'm like, where did this Craig Klein guy come in from? Like, it was just sort of like, here's another person who's angry, but I wasn't certain what you were angry at. I wasn't sure which of your sentences went to which part of that article.
Yeah, it wasn't very clear, and I don't think that and we had spoken in great length, and I think that the quote that was printed wasn't exactly what I said, and it wasn't exactly what I approved for them to say. I think that it gets.
Was it narrowed down? Was it misquoted completely? Keith, do you know what he said?
There's nuance, there's nuance to what I was trying to project, that my very first reaction to the accusations that he was hitting on people that were within, and this is a systematic issue in nightlife.
You were livid, and then you went to check on the people that you were responsible for.
Absolutely.
In the time.
Absolutely.
Okay. I get that. There's my quote for you.
And that timeline of events is very important to me and my position in this company, because I wanted the first thing along the timeline. My reaction to that initially was to contact the people that I was working with, as opposed to getting livid and calling people all over to cancel some sort of party. Okay. That wasn't really my motivation. I don't think it matters to anybody else, but I'm happy to be on this platform and say that.
I have the original quote. Yeah. The raider calls and says, "Hey, is this okay to say?" And he says, "Right now, here's the entirety of what."
This is the original longer quote that was narrowed down. Of Craig's. Okay, so this is what you actually
changed.
Okay.
I was totally surprised and offended at that Zoom call, said one live events industry executive. And later he says, "Can I rate Craig Klein?" Craig says, "Yes." I reached out to everybody I worked with immediately. I was livid when it was over. I thought they should disband the whole club. This was a very serious situation they were putting paid professionals into. So it has a little more to it. It's basically the same point, but
it's operations, and it's not baby with the bathwater. And this is the thing, is that it actually, these types of communities are so good. They're so good. They're so good. And
what do you mean?
At having a community. And having a community to be expressive and to push your envelope. And I would argue with you, Chemda, having gone to tons of raves with, thousands of people and all strangers, there's a great thing in that. There's a great...
I agree.
I think community, totally wonderful.
This is it's scientifically proven that community helps stop addiction. It helps with joy. It helps anti-depression. I think it's like one of the top things, if not
in my experience, though, what's even better than that is a closed group of maybe 100 or so people that I see every single week.
Same odds.
And we dance. I understand maybe that's true, but there's accountability amongst everybody because everybody knows each other. And if something were to go wrong, and when it did go wrong, eventually, it went to the top, but there were things that happened, and they were held accountable by the community by not being allowed inside of the community anymore. You can't get away with
1,000 people. If the rules are in place and they work well with 100 and 1,000 people. It might be a little more overwhelming, but then that means you can only have a group of 100 because you can only manage a group of 100. But there's a group of 5 people in your immediate family. One person decided to touch another person wrong. Okay. That community has to decide, what do we do when that happens? Whether I agree. One person or 50.
I agree with your sentiment. I think that the practicality of it, though, is it's easier to manage if everybody has a beat on everybody else. If you know this person, I think that
sometimes it's easy to cover up because you have a beat on the other person. You take it personally. That's not how Bob is. Bob's so nice to me. Now you're covering up more. Immediate families, religious communities, they cover up for each other because that's not how they see themselves, because there's so much good in the community, even when there's rotten apples and downright entire cults. There's
you make a really good point. Yeah, you make a really good point. And I do. And that is how these things, how this issue came to a real head, was that it seems to be that there were protective institutions for the guy at the top to
Well, everyone's trying to keep their jobs.
Yeah.
Who's the one that's going to say? The one that's going to have to look for another job.
Yeah.
That's a tough position.
It's a very tough position.
You ever say to the owners, have you ever seen anything? And have you said to the owners, hey, there's a vibe going on with these 20-year-old women and guys at this club? Did you ever see anything to even say anything?
There were times that I saw things that were not cool, that I saw that guys that I felt like were being a little bit predatory. And I don't mean like grabbing people. I mean, I just felt it in their persona. I brought it to their attention, and those people weren't allowed back in.
Okay.
There's also you can't stop 40-year-old men from dating 20-year-old women because you're infantile. I always fuck up that word. The 20-year-old, because at 20, I'm an adult and you can't tell me what to do. You can warn me about this person, but how many of us are taking warnings like that? That's the problem with that. There's nothing illegal if they're not crossing the actual legal boundaries. It's just very uncomfortable, obviously predatory, and like just you look ridiculous. But as a 20-year-old, I think I know all of that stuff. I think I know how ridiculous it looks. I think I know I'm in control. That's what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm. And so how do you make a space like this? How do you do something that's a little even over the top, like like magic ceremonies in the dark, and blindfolding people and reading poetry to them and stuff like that in dark rooms? These are very vulnerable situations to ask a stranger to go to in the middle of the night. And I don't think that you could do that unless it was a group that you were familiar with, a building that you were familiar with, a room that you were familiar with. And this is not for everybody. And therein lies, I think, a lot of the celebrity aspect of this article, right on point. And I even think they threw Marilyn Manson in there, which has nothing to do with and it's so silly, because this is like the politics of getting across, I think, a really valid point that there are systemic issues in subversive culture where it's a power mechanism. There's star fucking. Chemda, you and I were speaking about I don't know if you want to mention the name, but we were speaking about a club that's very near and dear to both of us that we frequented. And in hindsight, looking back on some of the relationships that we might have seen coming from the guy or the persona that was in charge there, that we really trusted, that we credit so much of ourselves and culturally and growth wise, all kinds of this stuff, and look back on it and be like, wow, I think that guy was a piece of shit predator, because of the position of power that he was in such a magical group. And I don't know if I won't speak for you, but I don't know if I would change a thing.
Well,
for me,
the thing is yes, of course you would change it. The thing is you think that you can't have that edginess without this thing. You would change the things that were done wrong, and you could still have people pissing in a cup and drinking it, and you could still have people singing, fairy tales or whatever, and you could still have comedians.
Very well put.
Yeah, I understand, because we want, you and I like being in spaces that are kind of gross. If we're going to break it down, kind of gross. Does that gross always have to come with a different kind of line pushing? Because we want that line to be pushed, again, like the beginning of the article said, that was part of the draw, that it's dark, that there's like sexuality in it, that there's stuff that you're not allowed. Like you said, an exaggerated version of yourself. You get to be that. You get to flow. What would you stop? The interruption of that flow. It wasn't the harassment that made that flow possible. It was the kicking out of the harassment that allowed people to sing freely and be free in that space. So what would we eradicate? The part that made it stop, for first individual people, and then that corrodes the entire community, and that could have been stopped.
You're totally right.
I did not know. And also some stuff comes out afterwards, which is what I learned. Some stuff comes afterwards, and then you go, well, I can't go back in time, but I am heartbroken. And I'm heartbroken that I don't know, maybe maybe I was in the dark. Maybe I put myself in the dark. Maybe I wasn't recognizing what one thing is over another, like we're learning now. There are times in my history where I'm like, oh, I didn't even know I was being abused, because I just think the way shit is the way shit is sometimes. And now what would we go back and change? That it doesn't have to be 100% the way things is.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And
but I would have
think
to know that, and I needed to be educated. How weird is that? You needed to be educated on your own abuse. But we see a lot of people going through therapy, talking things out, and there's epiphanies of, oh, that wasn't right. That's not how. But the problem is, who is recognizing that and who is saying that? The actual predators. Oh, I recognize now that that wasn't right. And people like me, if you go back in history, are falling for it. Oh my God, he recognizes it. I didn't know that it wasn't right. How would he know that it wasn't right? What I didn't know is that predators know it's not right. And you're feeding on what I was thinking, which is like, oh, everyone's free and happy here. I don't know that you're taking advantage of that. What I had to learn is you did know that you were taking advantage. It's very hard for me to wrap my mind around it, because that would be a mistake for me, that I'd be like, oh my God, what did I do? I don't.
And I think what you're talking about is exactly what happened at Cloak and Dagger, and it happens a lot at a lot of different underground places.
And it's to be expected, as far as I was concerned, until, I was a little more of a grown adult and I understood. I'm like, yeah, of course, I'm going to go into these spaces. I will be abused in one way or another, but these are what those spaces are about. And that's not true. And that's not what the promise is. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for something different, not edgy, like we're really jumping off something that's not safe. We're checking our safety harness. We're making like how unsafe a roller coaster is.
That's exactly what it
kind
should
of
be.
Unsafe.
That's it. 100. I use that analogy all the time.
Oh, maybe I got it from you then, and I'm just.
It's an important one, because we all want to feel what it's like to fall off a building, but nobody wants to jump off a fucking building.
Right.
You want to
get
caught.
Want to crash on the ground.
100%. But every single person's like, I gotta know what it's like. Right. I have to know, and you should be able to, because there are safe ways of going about it,
and you should be able to, with the harness on. And then if the guy didn't put the harness on and kicked you off, and then said, but you wanted to know what it was really like to jump off a building. It's like, dude, no, like I thought it was a given that I wanted to safely jump off a building.
Toaster oven.
Sounds crazy, but
toaster oven.
Okay, toaster oven.
I mean, and I think that the bottom line here is, men who want to be in control of things at the top of organizations. It always has a poor trickle down effect, like men that like to control the vibe.
But as a producer, do you not know that you have to control or at least lay up the vibe? You are creating the vibe.
Yeah. I guess what I'm saying is that it's don't do your own supply. Right. Like people that are great at doing nightlife, they're not necessarily participating in nightlife, they're facilitating nightlife. And when you bridge that, when you start like creating a garden so that you can eat you're, you know what I mean? Your best vegetables are going in your belly, and now everything is corrupt. Now it doesn't make sense anymore. It's not for them. It's for you. And I think these are the dangers of having these types of communities, is that eventually somebody rises to the top, or maybe by design, somebody is the one who conceives this idea or concept.
Because there always has to have some sort of leadership, but that comes with hierarchy, and it comes with I control things, and that's dangerous. Keith, are you feeling safe?
He looks confused.
If these words make sense, I'm good.
He's
so funny.
What do you think now about the owners, Adam and Michael?
I think Adam fucked up big time. I think that there is a great learning experience to have in this situation with them. I think that there could be redemption, in some ways. I think that their biggest, this is another important component about, I think, nightlife specifically, and all of those people out there that want to throw parties for their life or whatever that is, um, it's a very hard job. And it's not just about creating a scene and getting people to come in. Then you have to manage a crowd, and you have to protect people, and you have to consider people. And I think that they know now that they were a little bit over their heads. And I won't speak. I mean, that's I think Michael. I think he understands that he was over his head. I think, yeah. As far as the accusations towards Adam, I was just very disappointed in them.
Adam Bravin wrote, "My behavior was inappropriate after the Zoom call and unacceptable. I'm educating myself on why and how my behavior could be harmful and emotionally manipulative." So I look forward to that follow-up post. Shortly after being contacted by the Times, okay, about Cloak and Dagger's alleged...
My God.
How many fucking times are there?
A lot of times. I've never heard of a lot of times.
Keith is finding a way to bully this article.
I know, he's good at it. This is my friend. I love this guy.
Silent Trailers was just in the New York Times. That's something. Don't dilute that with the Seattle Times. How's the Somerset Times doing? Bravin and Patterson announced that the club was permanently closed when being reached in January, and deleted all their social media content. Right, so you just apologized, then you deleted it. Thank you for your business and support over the years. We wish you the best, was a brief statement to members. That's it.
Right, because at that point, it's like, okay.
To clarify, they deleted the club's social media account.
Okay.
And not their own. They continued to speak out on their own.
Gotcha. All right. What's next for one Craig Klein?
I'm doing events. I'm writing some.
Now, do you write on your resume that you worked at Cloak and Dagger, or not?
Yeah, I.
Do you say a good guy at Cloak and Dagger?
I don't know.
I facilitated parties / good guy.
Do the writers at Arrested Development say like, I know they don't put Arrested Development on the resume anymore because one of the actors was a prick, or Woody Allen's actresses. Do they put that on their resume? I mean, fuck those guys. It's a big problem. It's coming out all over the place. I welcome it with open arms. It's, I guess, going from the future, it's about finding that thing that Chemda really said. I'm going to think about a lot what Chemda said here tonight, that, we've been tricked into thinking that having subversive spaces means that you have to put up with something that doesn't feel right. And I think that's the root of what you were saying. And you don't. And you can take those things out and still have those places where you still get the butterflies in your stomach because you're going over the edge.
You got any pics of those chicks in lingerie?
Oh my God. You are so not getting a dagger, Keith. You may tattoo yourself with any other thing.
I'm like, tattoo both eyes. It's going to get nuts.
See, there's always a Keith Malley in the audience, There's always someone going, look at you freaks. And
that's why you have a private membership. Yeah, sleeves are mandatory.
Yeah, that's some lingerie with sleeves. Okay.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. Point. Negligees don't count.
Okay, so Keith, get a negligee.
Don't forget, join us Wednesday Eastern time. It is 8 p.m. 8 p.m. Eastern time is, I guess, how normal people say it. And we'll be on the Stereo app. Download stereo.com/Keith Malley, stereo.com/Chemda. Follow me, follow her, that kind of thing. And it'll alert you when the show's on. And feel free to interact. Craig will join us. All right.
When are we doing a Diamond Dogs, bro? Put you on the spot.
Let's do a Diamond Dogs this week.
All right, fuck yeah.
What's the topic you want to talk about this week, Craig?
I mean, Craig's free. He's unemployed, obviously.
There's all kinds of stuff going on in the world of video games. I just found out that I can play video games from my Xbox.
All right, they'll figure it out
on my phone.
It's probably going to be good. Not
Yeah, they'll figure it out. Oh, they'll figure it out. All right. I can assure you that.
They'll figure out some fun topics. What are the Diamond Dogs about?
All right, everybody. Thank you very much. Craig, good seeing you again. Where should people reach out to you if they want, if they have more complaints about Cloak and Dagger?
Yeah, just they can reach me at Symmetry Gates on Instagram.
Okay, that's simple, that easy. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot. Talk to you soon.
Share the show.